What the? All right. That's what I get for drinking beer. Hi, everybody. If you couldn't read lips, then you might not know that Mario Edwards Jr. was signed by the Texans today. Free agent, defensive end, who played with Seattle last year, played with the Titans before that. He was with the Raiders for a while, and he's a rotational player. Like, he very rarely plays more than 400 snaps in a season. Remember, like, Danielle Hunter played a boatload of snaps as a defensive end. He had about 1,000 snaps last year. So he's the guy that's going to rotate in. He's another guy kind of like Nico Collins in that he's huge for a defensive end, but he's too small to be a 3 technique full time. So he'll go down inside and rush at times. He'll go outside. I think D'Amico is probably building a nice package for when they want to rush the passer, but have some bigger bodies inside. Maybe be able to stop the run versus various teams with Nico Collins or a guy like Mario Edwards down inside. But they're going to be rotational players. Do we have audio? We've got audio. Thank you. It's good. Everything's good. I am excited about this because this time of year, as you know, when we're in the acquiring stages, I try to only watch highlights of a guy. So if we're going to watch Mario Edwards, just to give you a taste of when it's going good for him, he's up here. He's at the very top of your screen as the right defensive end. And nice play there. Like, he's got a real ability to stretch out for tackles. He can do a full backflip, by the way. I should have grabbed that video for you because that's really probably the most important thing. Is that he can do a backflip as a 285-pound guy. Here, I believe he's playing right defensive end. Oh, that's good. See, that's the damn shame about him is if he were 305, I think he'd be a hell of a defensive tackle. He uses his hands really well. But, like, just watch this. This is perfect. So he's right defensive end. Good hand placement, and then just stretches the guy out, makes the tackle. You see a few of those plays. Like, that's the kind of stuff that D'Amico's looking for. He is right defensive end down here. Discipline, feathering the old feather technique. Sounds kind of gross now that I say it outside of a football practice. I think he's the right defensive end here. Yeah. So, like, he's got it's kind of weird because he's got really good athleticism. He's a good tackler. I think he's just, I mean, right there, he's blazingly fast. I think he's the right defensive end here. Ooh. Right defensive end down here. Just double wipe and then bends. You know, he's had a couple, like, standout seasons in a career of, what is he, like 6 to 8 years? And maybe sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right scheme for him. Left defensive end here. Here's going to be another really good example of him pressing versus the run. Like that, and then throwing back. Left defensive end from a 2-point stance. Like, he eats up tight ends here. Take that, go Del Escherbach. Yeah. So there he is. There's your Mario Edwards. Can you hear me now? I didn't want to have to do editing after this, but now I'm going to have to do editing. Yeah, in the life, Colby says he's decent. Yeah, he's a decent football player. So nothing earth-shattering, but they're continuing to build out the rest of the roster to get to the point where you don't feel desperate to draft a certain guy. Like right now, starting cornerback and perhaps a complementary safety on defense are the spots where you'd like to go into the draft feeling like you don't have to stretch or reach for one of those guys. Defensive tackle still, even though they keep adding guys that can play inside, they're certainly not full-time defensive tackles. So we'll see there. The uniforms. Here's my opinion on the uniforms. I think that for one, whoever leaked that photo needs to be hunted down. Maybe he has been already, he or she, and lose all privileges to anything. I don't. The introduction of that uniform via a grainy cell phone photo in a warehouse that was meant to be all photo opped up and everything. I feel like somebody deserves to lose their privileges for that. I don't know who it was. I hope it's not somebody that I know or am fond of. But other than that, it was garbage because I like that first version. I'm cool with it. I know that some people say it looks a little too much like the Falcons, maybe because the deep blue looks almost like black. I think it looks new, and I'm fine with just having a new font on a uniform. I just want anything that looks kind of fresh, like a new era that we're actually in, and it does feel like a new era. So I'm okay with it. I don't need it to be mind-blowingly University of Oregon type stuff or anything like that, or Baylor. I'm good with it. Let's see. I think the uniforms look silly. Having the ability to be flexible in the draft. Let's go get Simmons. Yeah, I think that the thing with the Simmons right now, Rick, is I think the Texans don't want to be stuck or caught paying a guy who might be on that downward slide because he just looked like he wasn't quite the same guy last year, and it wasn't an awesome circumstance or anything in Denver. But once a guy's in his 30s and it looks like he might be taking that step back, especially at the safety position, which there's not a lot that separates you got to be really damn good to separate yourself from the pack. And I think they fear that Simmons might be just kind of regressing back into the pack right now. In the name brand appeal doesn't mean as much, but we'll see. Everything's falling apart today. Okay, so here's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to get the Mario Edwards stuff out of the way. I say Mario. That's right. It's where I was raised, I guess. I'm one of the few people that say Mario instead of Mario. It was hard for me with Mario Williams. I had to retrain myself to say Mario. The Texans All Access guys, Mark Vandermeer and John Harris, had on Will Anderson and Nico Collins. And I have not listened to most of those clips other than the ones that Sean sent to me. So I want to listen to those and react to those and to hear what Nico Collins is saying about stuff. And then we've also got JJ Watt on the This Is Football podcast. And I've got a few more pieces of Caserio audio from when we interviewed him the other day. And if we get to it, the Green Light podcast. Well, Chris Long was on the Rich Eisen show and said some nice things about the Texans. If we get to it, Battle Red will be used for home games. I like the jerseys, but I think they should have had Battle Red as the main color. Yeah, that's actually the way everyone in the AFC South has a blue colorway. Yeah, the Colts. The Jaguars are teal, but yeah, the red would kind of set them apart from the other teams. Yeah, Battle Red is the people's choice in a lot of ways. I love John Harris too. Good job, Frank. Should have been the main color, talking about red because it's the most popular amongst the fans. Do you think the H-Town blue will be incorporated into the home uniforms? That is something we will have to wait and see. I don't know about silly. Do they look silly? I think anytime there's a swoop or a swoosh or anything new like that, people are going to think that that's silly or a little extravagant. Maybe the font is a little too much over. I never thought as a grown man I'd care as much about font as I do. But this new digital world we live in, and just to have so many hues, fonts at our beck and call, it's made us all into graphic designers. Not a fan of everything being red. Okay, redder. So this is, let's go with Nico Collins because he had fewer cuts. So we'll start off with Nico Collins. I'm gonna do a reset here because I'm gonna try to edit these into standalone episodes. So excuse me while I introduce myself to all of you who already know me. I'm Seth Payne, played for the Texans long ago, played in the NFL for 10 years. Going to listen to some Nico Collins clip today from when he made an appearance on Texans All Access. We started in with him talking about getting nasty after the catch. Let's talk about getting nasty after the catch with Nico Collins.
It's just you gotta get nasty after the catch. You got to go score. When the ball touches your hands, it's like, oh yeah. Now everybody trying to tackle you, now everybody watching you. So it's only right you gonna make a play, man. And just you see a defender just trying to tackle you, man. It's only right you just lower your shoulder. It's only right, man. Just set the tone, Just show the other team that you're not scared. You out there having fun, enjoying the game, man. And it kind of set the tone for the whole team. I feel like once you get that excitement, once you get the juice from everybody, the crowd, the team, it's a ball game. It's gonna be a great feeling for everybody, man. Can't wait to get back with the group, man, get ready for OTAs, and just get back and pick up where we left off.
Okay, this is what I started liking about Nico Collins towards the end of the season. He'd been really good at the run after the catch all year long. It was in that Indianapolis play-in game where all of a sudden he just started trucking everybody. And it felt like it was contagious because Dalton Schultz was trucking everybody on the sideline. That was honestly, now that I think about it, that might have been the first time I really felt like, oh, okay, this is DeMeco's team. Like the defense had been swarming around all year long, but the offense, even though the receivers really latched onto and cared about run blocking, and that's tough and that's badass, the actual like bulldozing run after the catch, and like Nico, I was afraid that Nico was going to get flagged for an unsportsmanlike for hitting a defensive player out of bounds. Like that stuff really emerged towards the end of the year. So I like that. And Sean and I noted this morning that I also really like that he kept saying it's only right. Like, because it felt like he's one of these movie villains who believes that he's ordained by God to do whatever the hell he's doing. And those guys are pretty effective. Those are some pretty effective movie villains. Think about, well, like a High Sparrow in Game of Thrones. That's what Nico Collins probably is. And I'm here for it. Next, he was talking about what DeMeco and Caserio are doing and whether or not he's a fan of it.
Nick and DeMeco, Kyle, they know what to do for the facility, man. They picking the right people, and it's only right for OTAs. It's gonna be fun, and man, I feel like we're gonna be unstoppable. Once everybody get the groove, everybody, build the chemistry, man, brotherhood. Everybody bought in, man, and can't wait, man, to shock the world again.
Hey, there you go, shock the world again. Did we shock the world? That's a tricky one. I mean, obviously, like there's like 4 billion people in the world who don't care about American football. But did we shock the football world? I don't think the Texans shocked the football world as much as if they'd gone to a conference championship. That would have been the really high watermark. But they shocked the world in a Detroit Lions type of way, in that their ascension out of the manure pit that they had been suffocating in was quicker than we thought. We thought there was going to be kind of like nostrils up above the manure line for a little while, when instead they just emerged up like some horror movie creature. Hi, Sparrow. Next question. He's talking about what they've done with the defense and the high expectations. He's had some really high expectations for the defense here.
Major, man. All I'm saying, Nico, man, you know what he doing. I'm on the offensive end, but the defense look damn good. The D-line, linebacker, secondary. Yeah, them boys gonna probably be the number one defense in the league. I'm calling it right now. If not number one, it's gonna be the top. But the boys gonna be special, man. I can't wait to see it.
All right, number one defense in the league. I'm just gonna look at the DVOA from this last year. So DVOA, which is defensive efficiency. Don't ask me how they calculate it. It's like when like when we talk about war in baseball, we just like to pretend that we know what we're talking about. Like, oh yeah, it's a formula. I usually carry it around with me in my pocket so I could tell you what it was, but I don't have it today. So defensive DVOA last year, we had, of course, Baltimore was number 1, Cleveland was number 2, Jets number 3, San Francisco number 4, Dallas number 5. Dallas was not built to stop really good teams either in the fourth quarter or in the postseason, obviously. Pittsburgh was number 6. I feel like, the top 5, when you start looking at, let's look at number 6, down to Dallas at number 5, San Francisco at number 4, the Jets at number 3, Cleveland at number 2, Baltimore at number 1. That feels more achievable than I might have thought before the free agency period started. The fact that they added 2 really quality pass rushers into Nico Autry and Danielle Hunter, more than anything, makes me feel really optimistic about like rising to the upper echelons, because they still have their concerns on the back end. But this is the way D'Amico wants this defense running. And it's like, as he always says, the engine is the front. And if you've got that engine running, that makes the linebackers, that makes the defensive backs a hell of a lot better. I also do think, too, that safeties, Jalen Petrie in particular, he needs to improve, but also the linebacker pass coverage needs to be better in front of him so he can have an understanding of what he needs to do and what he doesn't have to do. And hopefully those will be like complementary factors. So as far as Nico talking about the defense, I think he's genuinely excited about them. I do wonder, I start to wonder, I'm not worried about it, but I wonder if like CJ is kind of looking around and being like, well, oh, yeah, cool. It's cool we got Joe Mixon, and it's cool that we re-signed Dalton Schultz, but I'd like a little bit of help. Like Saquon or something. I didn't want Saquon. If I would tell, I would tell CJ, hey, you're fine without Saquon, but if you wanted a Keenan Allen, I totally get it. So whoever comes after Keenan Allen to bolster that squad, or a second tight end. Speaking of Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins was asked about his thoughts on Dalton Schultz coming back.
Man, it was huge, man. It was huge, man. Since day one, Dalton, man, came, man. We always, talking, always asking him questions. Just him being that vet, man, is huge, man. We need that shoulder to lean on. We need the advice from him, man. And for him to come in and do what he did, man. For him to get the extensions, man, is well deserved. Everything he got, man, is well deserved, man. I'm happy for him. And he's about to lead his team, man, and the whole offense, man. We're just about to continue to improve, continue to push each other, man. Continue to have fun and play for one another.
Okay, the thing I wonder about that was Dalton Schultz showing those guys the ropes early in the season, is that Dalton does have the knowledge of a veteran player, but he also didn't quite have a grasp of this offense, and he and CJ weren't on the same page. So I feel like it was a little bit of the blind leading the blind early in the season, other than like the general NFL lessons that Dalton could give those guys. That's one of the areas that I think, despite the harder schedule, the Texans are going to have a leg up to counteract some of that with the fact that they're not starting at square one. They're not starting with a bunch of rookies. I mean, you had Tank Dell, CJ Stroud, you had a rookie and or backup centers at various times. There's a lot of youth out there, as well as veterans adapting to a new scheme. So I feel a lot better about Dalton Schultz getting on. You remember early in the season, there were some times when just on hot routes, for instance, he and the other receivers just were not whipping their heads around quick enough. They just weren't recognizing when they had to be ready and available because of a blitz. That got way better as the season went along. So that part with Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, everybody, I feel a lot better about. So Texans All Access was talking to Nico Collins. They asked, what is possible with you, Stroud, and the coaching staff coming back in this second year together?
That's huge, man, because my last couple of years, man, it wasn't like that. It was different coach changes, but we solid now, man. I feel like we found our foundation, man, and year two for CJ. I feel like for him, man, it's only going to get better. He can continue to ball out, continue to be him, man. Nothing changing. I feel like he's going to continue to chase his craft. And the rest of us, O-line receivers, running backs, tight ends, man, I feel like everybody as a collective offensive unit, man, we feel like we all going to chase, them details, man, that we feel like we need to improve on from last year.
Yeah, and look, it's hard to judge at this time of year if people have the appropriate attitude or not. And I'm not even saying this is a criticism of the Jaguars, because I don't know what the Jaguars themselves were saying this time last year. But in terms of the way people viewed the Jaguars, I think there was this feeling that, oh, look at that. They figured it out in the last third of the 2022 season. So the Jaguars are going to come out and they're going to be the best team in the league and they'll just keep getting better. And that was like obviously not the case. So I do think from just the sound bites I'm hearing from people that there's no complacence or there's no belief that, hey, they're just going to be better because that's what happens, because you can chart a graph that looks like it. I feel like these guys are appropriately hungry. And I think with CJ is just so humble all the time about knowing that he doesn't know everything that he needs to know. Like, he doesn't even know what he doesn't know in some degrees right now. I'm not worried about him. Like, I think he's going to overcome some of the same way Yordan Alvarez had a certain maturity about him, that he was going to overcome the adjustments and adjust to the adjustments. That's what CJ Stroud's been doing. So I feel fine about him. And, Nico's been through the ringer. It's not like he's just some rookie that had a big year and thinks that this is all easy. He's seen the downside of it too. Last one with Nico on Texans All Access. He was asked about the excitement around the team and if it's different this year than last year.
It's different, man. It's real different, man. You see the excitement in the fans, man, talking about the Texans, and OTAs, the free agency, man. You see the excitement for next year, man, and it's setting the tone, man. It's boiling the pot for next year, man. Can't wait to be a part of it.
Boiling the pot for next year. Can't wait to be a part of it. I was thinking about the things that are different between this year and last year, and I think D'Amico is the first thing that jumps out. So obviously this time last year, people were already excited about D'Amico, but nobody really knew what they're going to get out of him as a head coach. And nobody knew exactly what the results were going to look like, obviously. So if we go back to January of last year when we still weren't sure whether it was going to be D'Amico or not, that's night and day in terms of enthusiasm. And I don't know if there was a coaching hire that would have been more immediately embraced than D'Amico Ryans. Sean Payton, there would have been all kinds of debates about any of those guys. I think there would have been a lot of debates about it. With D'Amico, it was unanimous. And that's rare for a franchise that had kind of been through the ringer themselves. The other big thing is obviously CJ Stroud. This time last year, we didn't even know if the Texans were going to draft a quarterback. Remember that fun? Yeah. That was when the reports were emerging. I think this time last year might have been, I think it was after the draft when there started to be the reports of Nick Caserio possibly his job being on the line, and just really a lot of stuff that ended up being complete nonsense. That's changed a lot just by virtue of drafting CJ Stroud. Obviously, last year we're trying to figure out if they're going to make another go of it with Davis Mills. I don't know. There are a lot of Davis Mills truthers out there. They've been curiously silent. I think they're sleeper cells right now. They're just waiting. They're waiting to emerge. But for the most part, I think even the Davis Mills sleeper cells have conceded, okay, this CJ Stroud kid's pretty good. Hannah McNair 2.0, I think that's been a 2-year process. I think Hannah really started to put her foot forward. I think there's right around the time Easterby was fired in 2022, I think things started to change in terms of how micromanaged the Texans might be, and just exactly, what ownership was going to be sure they didn't allow to happen. And Hannah McNair being more front and center, she's become the surprise cult hero in the city of Houston that nobody anticipated. You go back to 3 years ago when, I remember somebody had some kind of a run-in on social media because they had taken their signs away from them. There was all kinds of weird stuff, and that's all just it's a memory. Case Keenum, underrated part of Texans 2.0. The new uniforms, which I know not all of you are crazy about, but that's the way new uniform unveils go. If you're 50-50, you're probably doing something right. You want half the people to love it, half the people to hate it. If they'd gone super aggressive, then 25% of you like it and 75% would hate. And Tank Dell, those are the biggest things that jump out at me as far as the Texans feeling a lot different in terms of excitement. See, Rick knows what I'm talking about. A full back portrait of Hannah McNair. Like a tattoo? That would be so worth the restraining order you would get. As a former Davis Mills truther, I'm so glad I was wrong about drafting Stroud last year. Yeah, listen, I try real hard, man. It's hard as a fan, and you want to believe in the quarterback that you have. And there were things that some of the Davis Mills truthers there's things they would say and places they would go that were just a step too far. And yet I know what you're trying to do. So don't feel bad about it. Don't feel ashamed. You loved somebody. Okay. I'm told that that's important, to love and be hurt, so that when the real thing hits you or something. Money Mills. Yeah. Okay. D'Amico would make Simmons into a weapon. That's an interesting, you know what? I think that the problem right now is that Jimmy Ward is the guy who should be doing a lot of the super smart stuff for the secondary, but I just don't know how healthy he's been. And I think last year, at times maybe he was overly aggressive. At times, I don't know how much D'Amico. I mean, D'Amico's kind of cool with guys being overly aggressive in spells and in certain moments. He's not cool with them being overly aggressive when you have D'Angelo Ross covering Amari Cooper. as he's playing cornerback for the first time all season. He does not like his safeties to be overly aggressive in that instance. But I think Jimmy Ward is that guy that he looks at as the veteran leader in the backfield. I worry at this point. This is the only thing I worry about with some of this offseason strategy. It's great when coaches can bring in players that they know and trust. But sometimes if you start like it would have been with Eric Armstead, you start bringing in too many guys that are in their 30s and you start just expecting the same thing out of those guys from the last time you were with them. That can be dicey. I was in Jacksonville when we had gone to a couple AFC championship games and Coughlin started signing a lot of aging veterans like Carnell Lake and Bryce Pop and Hardy Nickerson. And they just weren't the same guys. So I feel like right now, I feel like the balance is pretty good. Keenan Allen would have been. The other part of it is they've only signed these guys to short-term contracts. That's really the good part of it, is that they're not getting out over their skis on just how much they're paying these guys. I think that's why D'Amico brought Jimmy in. We saw him helping guys pregame, just couldn't stay healthy. Yeah, and I think he's been very good for the leadership side of things. He gave Ed Reed vibes when he came here. He's good at them. That's interesting. Like as far as in a good way or a bad way? I guess that's Houston might be the only place in the National Football League that has a negative connotation with Ed Reed. Do you realize how weird it is? Like any other 31 other fan bases, including when he went to the Jets after the Texans, he actually did all right there. There's 31 other fan bases when you say the words Ed Reed. There will not be a hint of negativity about it. Certainly not in Baltimore. And everywhere else, they'll gush about how awesome he was. This is the only state. This is the only city. Really, like you should be proud of yourselves that we're the only city that has the guts to tell our personal truth about Ed Reed. Damn it. The next guy that the Texans had on Texans All Access was Will Anderson, one of my favorite people on this entire earth. So let me be sure I pull up the right Will Anderson cuts.
It was just a blessing, man, to share that moment with all those guys.
No, it's a blessing, damn it. So, Will Anderson won Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to be even better than he was, at the end of last season, this season, as long as he can stay healthy. Obviously, that was an issue. You guys got my microphone, right? I heard a weird bleep. Okay, so Will Anderson was on Texans All Access. First question they asked him was just his thoughts on winning the Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Man, it was just a blessing, man, to share that moment with all those guys. Me and CJ came in this thing together, man. We both got drafted 2 and 3. And to share that moment with him and his family and my family to be there, man, and Coach Ryans and the McNairs and Nick and, Andre and his people, man, it was just a blessing, man. It's just all honor to God, man, and just being able to be in there and be in that setting, but also just see so many other great athletes and how they maneuver around everything and how they are.
Man, he's such a good kid. Oh, man. If I had a son, I'm glad I don't have a son, because he wouldn't be like Will Anderson. He'd be more like me. I'd be like, hey guys, wipe that scowl off your face, you grumpy SOB, and be more like Will Anderson. My God. Will Anderson and his eagerness to be a sponge to older veteran players is just so cool. Like everything about him, like so many guys that go in the first round could let it go to his head or could start thinking he's better than he is or anything, but he just wants to soak it all in. And that part was really cool to see at those awards where you had Cal and Hannah, but you also had Andre Johnson was in town for it. You've got CJ, you've got D'Amico, you've got Will Anderson and his family. It is I almost want to say it's like a high school environment, because college, it's a different environment than in the NFL. The one thing that's different, though, is that you do have 400,000 people on the team itself and 297 trainers. And it's just a big operation. NFL teams are smaller, but there's more turnover and guys are adults and there's different distractions. But I do think that when you get your core nucleus, there's something about Tank and I need Nico in there and Will and CJ that feels like a high school team almost. And that's pretty cool. It's I'm jealous. I'm honestly jealous of these guys that they've been able to maintain almost like a purity about them. Like they don't seem like calloused guys. Like the kind of guy they don't seem like the kind of guys that Nick Saban was talking about. Nick Saban's talking about how all these guys will only talk about money and what are their opportunities and everything like that. And like I don't know, we might have just grabbed the last little batch of wholesome college football players to exist. Thank God. Next question was about how did last season evolve for him as a rookie?
I mean, like from the first game from Baltimore, it was most definitely a learning lesson. But like sometimes it came a little natural, but then like when teams start studying you and start game planning for you and things like that, I think that's just one thing that I have to do a really good job of adjusting to and not getting so frustrated because a lot of time when teams would start to game plan for me and stuff like that or chip me or double me and stuff like I would get really frustrated and really get down on myself. But I had to take accountability to be like, look, this is going to happen. So like, how can we take that next step? So this offseason, like that's really something that I'm gonna focus with my pass rush is like taking that next step in that area of my game and not getting frustrated with myself.
Okay, so for those of you just joining us, Will Anderson is on Texans All Access talking to John Harris and Mark Vandermeer. Him talking about his frustration and getting chipped, getting double teamed, all that stuff. You could see the frustration when he was mic'd up early in the season too, with some sideline audio. You could see when he would get frustrated about it. The thing about Will Anderson is like he never turns that frustration into a Stephon Diggs temper tantrum or something like that. It's just it's inward, he's not blaming anybody else. But the cool thing was that over the second half of the season, two things happened. One was he started to anticipate chip blocks a lot better. A couple of his sacks at the end of the year, they were masterful in that he anticipated the chip block, ducked his arm under the chip block, then finished rushing the offensive tackle. That takes a lot of timing and anticipation and understanding of what's happening. So that was really cool. But then the other part of it was when he talked about it in his final press conference about how just, it's nice to see all those stats about how you're getting double teamed a lot and the ESPN win rate and pressures and all that. But he said at the end of the day, you got to get sacks. Like you have to. Like you got to get the quarterback down. That's if you're gonna be recognized as a pass rusher. Yeah, QB pressures are nice, but the sacks are what people pay attention to, and that's what has the largest impact on the game. You can have some QB pressures that end up in an interception, and that's awesome. But on average, a chance for a sack and a strip sack, turnover, like those are the things that on average have a much bigger impact on the game. And over time, you just got to start getting those sacks. And he realized like he was close, but he needed to fix a few things. So that part of it was really cool. Will Anderson talking to Texans All Access. He was asked about which moment from last season sticks out for him.
I would say the playoff game against the Browns, just as a team, man, it was awesome to see the city. It was awesome to see the fans, the lights, everything like that. And the energy on the sidelines was just going crazy, man. That's the type of brand that we want to have every game, throughout the building, everybody. And then just the first game, that's like my first sack against Lamar. Yep. So that's one to remember.
Yeah, I almost feel bad for him that he got that first sack right off the bat. And had a really nice rush versus the right tackle. I'm blanking on his name right now for the Ravens. He was actually getting held, and he just used it to bend it around back into a sack. And then he kind of had a dry spell there for a while. But the atmosphere, and I think CJ and Will, kind of like gently nudging the fans to get into it. I was nervous about that at first. It's almost like, like when you throw a party and there's like a little part of you in the back of your brain where you just wonder like, oh crap, what if nobody comes? What if I'm not popular and nobody comes? I think it's a testament to just how damn confident CJ Stroud and Will Anderson are that they can basically tell the fans, hey guys, why don't you come out a little earlier? Okay. It's just come on in. And people did it. We do the pregame show out there. Sean and I do the pregame show. And towards the end of the season, we really did notice people coming in a lot earlier. That was kind of cool. Back in days of old, there were times where Sean and I felt kind of almost desolate and alone until 1 hour before kickoff. And it wasn't like that this year. So that part of it's been cool. Changing the culture. Next, Will Anderson talking to Texans All Access, talked about what it's like playing through an injury or injuries.
Yeah, man, it's all a part of the game. You know what I'm saying? And it's also a mindset. For me, like just being at Bama, but my whole life being in college, all the coaches I have, like, at the end of the day, like it's ultimately your decision. Like either you want to go out there and go play, but it just shows what type of competitor you are, what type of warrior you are. And for me, I stand firm on my faith, knowing that God makes no mistakes. I'm gonna be good when I go out there. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not gonna make anything worse. But I just want to go out there and play for the guys beside me, man, because we put in so much work this whole off season. Let's just go leave it all on the field.
One of the best lessons that anybody ever taught me, from as far as a veteran player teaching me as a rookie, was when John Yurkovich, who's a guy that got injured, and because he got injured, I ended up starting as a defensive tackle my rookie year, told me that, hey, like like almost everybody's going to play injured, but what makes you good in the NFL is how well do you play when you're injured. If you can play up to your same level when you've got injuries, that if you're out there on the field, figure it out and get it done. And Will Anderson getting those 2 sacks and like 3 QB hits and 12 snaps when he came back in at the end of the year when injured. That was big, and like he's so much of the right kind of stuff. I don't worry about that at all. He was also asked by John Harris and Mark Vandermeer on Texans All Access. Will Anderson asked about what he's like off the field versus on the field.
I think I take myself to that point to like I'm getting ready to go play football. Like I'm getting ready to go play a game that's physical. You're gonna get hit. You got to hit somebody back. And for me, it's just like I don't need any extra anything from anybody. Like it's the fact that somebody's lining up against you and trying to stop you from getting what's yours. And I had it saying all the time in Alabama, like don't be denied what you want. Like go get what you want. And that's my whole mindset. Like this person in front of me is trying to stop me from getting what I want, so I have to go take it. So that's just my mindset and how I get myself ready. Like this person in front of me is really trying to stop me from being the best that I can be.
Yeah. That guy's trying to take something from you. I remember his guy, Chris Zingo, who a college teammate of mine, who went off and played in the CFL, and he would come back and he was psychotic in all the right ways. He was a linebacker, undersized linebacker. But that was one of the things he taught me too, was just like, that guy's trying to take something from you. Like that's your tackle. That's your hit on the QB. Like this learning how to hate the guy in front of you, especially for guys like Will Anderson. It's fun to teach guys how to find that balance. Like hate a guy right before the snap, but then be cool afterwards, but then hate him again. You got to use like unless you're a true psychopath, you got to use a few tricks to do that 17 times a season plus playoffs. And I feel like Will is all gung ho about that. Will can very much fool himself into looking at that guy as somebody that's trying to keep him from getting what's his. That's why watching movies is good. That's why I like watching any kind of Braveheart or 300 or anything like that. It's just role playing. Everybody goes water. You know what it is Waterboy. Everybody that the Waterboy stuff is not that crazy, because I think a lot of guys use stuff like that. It's not obviously in 4K the way it was for the Waterboy. But you figure out ways to get a chip on your shoulder about stuff and kind of bring out that shadow part of yourself that Miss Terry wouldn't even want to know about. So Will Anderson talking to the Texans All Access guys, talking about how he feels about the addition of Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, man, like it was so exciting. I met him at the Pro Bowl, so it's just so crazy. I met him at the Pro Bowl. We chopped it up a little bit, and now we're with the same agency, so we got to eat dinner and everything like that, and really get to know each other a little better. And then when I found out the Texans were signing him, man, I met him up in the office today, and I was just jumping around like a little kid. Like you should have seen me, man. I was literally just jumping up and down, like I was so happy. And I was like, bro, like this is what I wanted right here, man. Like just somebody opposite of me that teams fear. Like I know that's a hard worker, bro. He's physical. He's going to go strike tight ends, and he can rush. Like, I know he's had double-digit sacks since he's been in the league. So, and then just to get an opportunity to learn from him as well, man, that's what I'm most excited about. Like, a vet like that, somebody that's been through, everything, that knows the game. I'm just ready to learn from him as well.
Honestly, I had no idea how much I missed Will Anderson. And it's really been, what's it been, 2 months? It's been 2 months. And since I really heard long extended comments from Will Anderson, if you don't count the awards before the Super Bowl, this guy, it's just infectious. I don't know if I've ever had a teammate quite like Will Anderson. I've had a lot of awesome guys who are really good dudes, but I don't know if I've ever had a potential star player who's also so outwardly focused. Because there's a certain amount of obsessiveness that comes with most great players. They're working on themselves. They're working on their game. And even if they're awesome guys, it's not, there's a limit to how much they can focus outward. Justin Verlander has talked about this, talked about when he was a younger player, he was kind of just obsessed in one track and maybe wasn't as giving towards his teammates as he is now when he's older. So for like Will Anderson as a young guy like that, that's had a certain amount of success already as a rookie, it's just really cool to see. I just don't know if I've ever been with a guy quite like that. And I know and I played for some great coaches, but I never had a coach quite like D'Amico. And I'm trying not to get ahead of myself here because I've been through the ringer and I've learned lessons about the NFL, but it's just different. It's just it's really different. I almost feel like an obligation. I feel like an obligation to be sure I don't do anything to screw this up. And somehow, and you might say, Seth, how could you possibly screw it up? I've fucked up a lot of good parties before, okay? To which I might not have been invited. So I just want to treat this with kid gloves because it's something kind of different. Will Anderson talking to Texans All Access. I believe that John Harris asked Will whether pass rushing is more of an art or a science.
I see a little bit for both sides, and I think it's for me, it's the side. So like my left side, that's like my art side, and then my other side, that's like my science side. Right. So like I'm really good on one side of just being crafty, of like I can throw some moves on that side, but my other side, I have to break it down, like
more technical.
Yeah, more technical. Like okay, this is what you got to do here. So it's just a feel for it, but I just kind of say it depends on the side that I'm on.
That gets super interesting, and I bet I'm sure a lot of coaches have feelings about this. I mean, there's a couple things to that. One, some guys are just naturally better on the left or the right, but then there's also the side of, all right, how much of that is nature versus nurture? Because if you're just more naturally comfortable on the left, and then you tend to end up playing there and working there more and practicing your moves almost subconsciously at times, or just when you're walking through the mall and hitting pass rushes on passerbys and all that stuff, you might favor going from the left. So a lot of it on the right side where it might feel more analytical to him, I'm guessing it's just because he doesn't have the muscle memory over there, and he might just not naturally be as comfortable. If you wrestled in high school, you know this too. Like if you're right-handed, you're better on your right than on your left, and you got to really try to get ambidextrous like that. I think that'll be another cool thing that I don't think with Daniil. I'll have to look and see how often Daniil flip-flopped and what have you, or whether he has a side that he prefers on third downs. Because Will at times would spend some games predominantly on the left side, but then he started switching up more towards the end of the season. Daniil gets the veteran power of he probably has first dibs on the worst pass blocker right now. Over time, Will Anderson will get to the point where he and Daniil might fight over it, and that's usually a good spot to be in because you've got a lead and you're going in to try to get your sacks. Last question for Will Anderson from the Texans All Access guys is what is the week of prep ahead of a game like for you?
Oh, it's great. I think I learned that skill in high school. Like I would be Friday night, I was watching the game after the game, watching another opponent after the game was over. Like that's how much I love the game of football. So watching film, it was a little different in the league because it's just more detailed. Yeah. So I had to Rankins was a great vet for me, man. He helped me out a lot. Like he taught me how to extend how to watch film a little better. But other than that, just taking the notes from him, getting on it, what the tackle is doing, what the running back is doing, what's the quarterback mannerisms, how far is he setting in the pocket, all those things, how many kicks the old tackle's taking. So what's the center doing with the ball, guards, I'm watching them. So just taking that next step of watching everybody and not just my guy.
Yeah, that's
I really
he's ahead of the curve. Oh, there's another thing coming up from Will. I don't think I've got that written down. It'll be a surprise for all of us. He's way ahead of the curve. I think that a lot of rookies to be able to focus in on all those things. Now, I don't know if he's got the process down to where he's got the checklist in his mind, but there's when you get to be more and more of a veteran, all of those things from the center, you're reading a triangle from the center and the lineman in front of you back to the quarterback and the tailback, and you're picking up all these cues. You get more advanced and you start understanding wide receiver splits and all that stuff. But for him to be cognizant of all that stuff and to be able to take it all in, I get a little bit defensive when I hear or see some people say that, in this defense, they just let the guys go and you play the run on your way to the quarterback. They don't care about screens or draws. Chase Daniel said that, and he was saying it in a complimentary way, but I disagree. Like D'Amico wants his defensive linemen to be very aggressive. And those defensive ends, because they're lined up in wide nines, they can get after it very aggressively across the line of scrimmage. But he does want them to be completely and totally aware of their run responsibilities. And the ability to be aggressive in both comes with a lot of that pre-snap stuff that Will's talking about. When you start to get a feel for, even if you don't know exactly what play's coming, you might know what plays they won't be running, so you can be more aggressive in a certain direction on the field, or you know that it's run, you know that it's pass. I think he's going to start to get a lot of that stuff this year, and that'll be cool to see. The last answer is one that I hadn't written down, so it's either a repeat or it's a surprise for all of us.
I think that was a really great, test for us. I think that showed everybody what you have to do to be able to be prepared for situations like that, taking care of your body, the longevity of the season, everything like that. And I think the plan that Coach D'Amico has, it's an awesome plan. Like, he knows how to get us prepared for a game. So, like, now we know what to expect. Now we know how to be more detailed in practice. Now we know what it takes to try to have to win those games. Like, we got to get to the quarterback, get better. We got to be dialed in. We can't have a lot of MEs. Like, everybody got to be taking care of their bodies and stuff like that. So that's the next step, is just everybody, like, being detailed, more locked in, and taking care of their bodies for the longevity of the season.
Yeah, that's a big one. Convincing young men to take care of their bodies. I went down a rabbit hole because I had this JJ Watt stuff that we're going to play here in a little bit. But I ended up watching a video that I didn't pull for this, but it was him talking to, was it Easy Wachaku? Was that his name? Wachaku? Do you remember on Hard Knocks, JJ talking to Wachaku about his sleep schedule, and that he was trying to get to the point where he could sleep for 10 hours per day, and then he goes to bed at 8:30 at night, and Wachaku's looking at him kind of like, man, like realizing just how committed JJ is. And JJ just said the lifestyle sucks, but you gotta, if that's what you're going for, that's what you're going for. I gotta check in with JJ on that, and exactly like how many hours of sleep he was able to get. And Bregman too, remember, because Bregman was trying to get like 11 hours of sleep a night, and now he's got a kid or two, and it just gets more complicated. The people without children, it's super easy to get 10 to 11 hours of sleep a night. I've never been able to sleep more than like 7 hours. If I have to hold myself in bed to stay in bed for longer than 7 hours. So, but I definitely notice a big difference between 6 and 7. A couple of you've had some questions before I move on to JJ. Okay, this is interesting. Oh, Mike Williams signed with the Jets per Schefter. Okay. I don't know who Ben Gesserit is. Bene Gesserit. So I'm going to look that up. I hope he's not like a heroin addict or something, because that's not my problem anymore. Okay, that was a slug towards Grenard. Talking about Sheldon Rankins? I don't know. Was it? I think Sheldon Rankins is a vet. He's been around a while, and I think that Sheldon Rankins kind of took Will Anderson under his wing, whereas Grenard's still a young guy. I don't know. Did I miss more of it? Was there something more about was it just that he said nothing about Grenard? And now let's look up this Bene Gesserit. I'm about to get hyper pissed at one of you people. It pops right up. Oh, from Dune. Who's Bene Gesserit? All right, I'm going to share this. Now, I haven't seen Dune, so I got to go watch Dune now. All right. I've got nothing against Dune. Don't worry. I'm not one of those people that's going to like yuck your yum or anything like that. I think Will felt like Grenard could have played through that injury. So is that what this has turned into? Yep. Charlie Heck 1 year up to $3.3 million. That was yesterday, right? Because he had this. Okay, right. Because he had the same injury. He was playing through it. You guys are stirring pots that don't need to be stirred, man. Grenard's going to be. Here you go. Thank you, Johnny Lambo. Where's that? He thanked JG first in the Defensive Rookie of the Year speech. There was no, like, John Grenard was still a young player. Sheldon Rankins was a vet. And Sheldon Rankins, I think, kind of took Will Anderson under his wing. Okay. The Bene Gesserit are a group in Frank Herbert's fictional Dune universe, a powerful social, religious, and political force. Oh, my ability to sway people. I thought I was kind of like swaying because I'm a little uncomfortable with. I was 2 minutes late to this and my microphone wasn't hooked up because I was trying to put all this video together. That's good sway. All right. I'll take that. I don't know what any of these emojis mean. You guys are picking on an old man at this point. Oh, Calais Campbell, probably the oldest player in the league, but still a dominant force against the run. Still a decent pass rusher, too. Talk about super vet. He's kind of like, he's like Lawrence Fishburne mature, where when Lawrence Fishburne was 23 years old, he looked like he was 40. Like, not in a bad way. He just looked super mature. That's kind of what Calais Campbell is like. He's got that deep, gravelly voice, and he's been like a 45-year-old since the time he was 23. I haven't watched a single bit of him last year other than when the Texans, was it Atlanta? No, it wasn't. Anyway, whenever the Texans played the team he was on. Let's see. Get JJ to come back for a Super Bowl win. JJ's done, man. I think JJ is done. And speaking of JJ, he was on Kevin Clark's. Let me reset this so I can do it without having to record a new intro when I chop this up. JJ Watt was on Kevin Clark's podcast, This Is Football, which is an Omaha Productions joint that runs on ESPN. He weighed in on a few things like the unjust coverage of players from non-marquee teams, who's the biggest badass that he ever played with, the play he wishes he could do over. I've got clips from both of those. And I threw in a montage from Hard Knocks just because I got nostalgic about it. So JJ Watt, let's see if I pull up the right one. I don't think this is going to be it. Hold on a second, everybody. So we had no sound for the first part, right? Somebody's pointing out that JJ's got a football team to run. Yeah. Who's 37? Oh, what's his face is? Yeah. He's freaking old, man. He's super old. Why isn't this working? This might be the week I end up getting a producer to help me out, everybody. JJ Watt for StreamYard. Here we go.
Thing that I've learned is...
Okay, so this is interesting. And this has a Danielle Hunter tie into it. So this is JJ Watt talking about what he's learned in media.
The biggest thing that I've learned is how important it is to play in the biggest of games, and which is which is obvious. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But the amount of, for me being on the player side to me being on the announcer side, I personally know how much effort, energy, time, sacrifice, blood, sweat, tears, injury happens for every team. Whether you're the number one team in the NFL or the number 32 team in the NFL, with zero chance of making the playoffs. But the amount of care or mind space that you take up is so minuscule compared to the top, let's call it 3 or 4, maybe 8 teams in the NFL. So there's these guys like that I know that I've been before, where you're on the second, third worst team in the league, first worst team in the league, and you're doing all the same things that the other guys are doing. But you're like, it's those are the things to me as like a broadcaster when I'm sitting in it and we're talking about like, hey, who should we highlight? I'm trying to highlight, a couple guys where it's like, I know this guy's great. I know this guy's awesome. Like, yeah, well, that's not a big game this week. I'm like, okay, like you're just like, man, but that guy's playing great ball. Like it's you got to be in the conversation to be in the conversation.
Yeah, you got to be in the conversation to be in the conversation. I honestly, I feel for JJ there because he's a 3-time defensive MVP. But there are times when you get into the playoffs and then when you get to the Super Bowl, especially, they want to hear from guys who have played in the game. And like, it sucks for JJ that he was one of the most dominant defensive linemen of all time. But when it comes to the Super Bowl side of things, when he's doing the commentary, there's other like far lesser players who all of a sudden people are more interested in their opinion. And that's just the way it goes. Like, and as far as what he's talking about during the season, certainly pretty much any of the AFC South teams, or many of the other teams that aren't the old NFC East teams or the Green Bay Packers or the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Oakland Raiders, kind of those name brand teams, they just don't get as much attention unless there's a quarterback attached to them. And that's where I think it's different with CJ. It's just like it's different. Kansas City was a team that was largely ignored, except when they, got Pat Mahomes and obviously won Super Bowls. I would put the Saints are a team like that when they didn't have Drew Brees, and now that they don't, I think that like the national media largely ignores them. So where this has relevance with the Texans is when J.J. Watt, let me pull it up here. He tweeted this out during the year. Remember, Danielle Hunter deserves more credits than he gets. Currently leading the NFL in sacks, currently leading the NFL in TFLs, averaging 10 sacks a year since he came into the league. A consistent, solid player is having a hell of a year. So, like, JJ was meant specifically guys like Danielle Hunter when he was talking about guys that don't necessarily get the attention they deserve. And I've seen that from a few kind of hardcore film junkies talking about Danielle Hunter over this past year, or after the Texans signed him. They almost have a chip on their shoulder on behalf of Danielle Hunter. So it makes me like that much more in Danielle Hunter's corner that he came back to his hometown team. Yes, they gave him an absurdly large percentage of guaranteed money on his contract, but I think he looks at it as he's got a chance to do something special on an up and coming team that's also in his hometown. So JJ would approve of that, obviously. Next one was JJ. Was the biggest badass he's played with.
Oh, I mean, I got to give it to Brian Cushing. I mean, yeah, he's when he took the moment I knew it was my rookie year when we were we were returning an interception, and then a guy tried to block Brian. Brian smoked the guy. Then they were staring at each other talking, and still unknown to this day why he did it, took off his own helmet and headbutted the guy who still had his helmet on. Nobody made him take off his helmet. Nobody ripped his helmet off. He just decided, I would rather headbutt that guy's helmet with my bare head. So I'll give it to Kush.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys wanted to know why I was 2 minutes late coming in and why my microphone wasn't plugged in. I could not find an HD version of that incident that also had the audio attached. So me with my caveman editing skills was spending way longer than I needed to finding the HD copy of that, which I found on the Houston Texans website. But I think the NFL doesn't like want the NFL doesn't want to broadcast guys intentionally giving themselves head injuries anymore. But I went and found the sound from it and then added it to the HD. So this was the only HD with sound version of this incident in existence, as far as I know, from at least several minutes of Googling. I'll put this out as a standalone at some point. So this is the notorious moment when Cushing just went absolutely psychotic. Honestly, it was crazier than I even remembered. Here we go.
Dance. You big fat. That's it. It's a mother. That's it. Look at this, man. I promise you. You hear me?
I'm sorry if that was too loud. Oh my God. That's so awesome. He called him a big sack of something. Okay, I got to pull this up again. We got to watch that again. My God. That's the most psychotic thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Cushing we talk about, talking yourself into stories to get to a spot that maybe you haven't been before or you didn't know that you could be. Just watch this crazy SOB. What a psycho. God, I love him. Hold on, I'm going to turn the volume down for you. I don't want to puncture your guys' eardrums. Okay.
I'll give it to Kush.
Yeah.
Okay. So knocked the offensive lineman on his ass. And the offensive lineman saw him coming. Called him a big sack of something. I'm guessing poop. Dude comes after him. Shoves him from behind. And then this is the thing. Okay, Cleveland dude. Like he saw that his face, that his helmet was off. Yeah. Man, that's some restraining order bullshit right there. Oh, I'm so happy I saw that again. That's freaking crazy. So Kush was the baddest dude he ever played with. He's a big fat bitch. That's probably. It didn't say. You think so? I'm not gonna go. I'll send it to an audiologist or something. I feel like Cushing is just that 0.0001% that feels no pain. Taylor tried to sell me Cushing's Camaro after he trashed it. How many Camaros has Cushing trashed in his lifetime? They're like, honey, I got angry. I beat up the Camaro again. We got to go get a new Camaro. The one with him and Alfred Blue. I don't think I brought that on. I didn't put that on here, man. I'm sorry. And that, you know what though? Oh, I should have though. Here's a montage from Hard Knocks with JJ. We kept the JJ themed. We'll do some Cushing sometime later on. Let's see.
The Tony Romo play. Where
okay.
I beat Tyrants.
All right, this was JJ talking about the play that haunts him most, that he wishes he could have back. My scary Browns moment, by the way, was when Orlando Brown Sr. shoved that ref. I was there, and I was like, I kind of felt like I was like a wild animal that escaped, and I didn't know what to do, because that is a large human being that was like angrier than anybody I've ever seen before. And he shoved that ref, and I swear that ref went like 10 feet in the air. That's how it is in my memory. I know he didn't, but in my memory, you know how your mind plays tricks on you? The ref went like 10 feet in the air, like in a kung fu movie or something. So this is JJ talking the play he wishes he could do over.
The Tony Romo play, where I beat Tyron Smith right off the line of scrimmage fast. It came in, and I was literally trying to kill Tony Romo. I've told this to his face. I was trying to break his back. That was the goal. And he, no idea how he knew it, but he felt my presence coming from behind. He spun out of it through a 57-yard touchdown. And that ended up being the game-winning touchdown. So wow. I would redo that play, and I would smoke him.
Okay, so here's the play for everybody's enjoyment and memory. Remember, this was up in Dallas, and the Cowboys had to go to a silent count because there were so many Texans fans there. There were like 20 or 30,000 Texans fans there, which was pretty cool. And it was a close game. And JJ almost had a really good shot at making a hugely significant play here in the third quarter. But watch him. He's the right defensive end going against Tyron Smith.
Rookies today, they ride in the same limo.
And just right there, dead to rights. Romo spins out. He goes 55 yards here.
Romo, spin, throw, end zone,
Terrence Williams. Oh, this guy can eat a bag of stuff. Okay, I wanted to show this. Look at how, like, the first two times I watched it in real time, I thought that JJ must have jumped off sides. But watch this. He just timed it perfectly. I think the silent count and whatever cue he had, just boom. And then he's got him right there. This is the worst feeling in the world, even if you're an athlete like JJ. It's not the worst feeling right here, but you do know that there's a tendency to get too excited because that quarterback is standing there all by himself. There's nobody else around him. There's no pocket. He can go anywhere. And then the question is like, okay, do I try to hit him as hard as I can, or do I settle down a little bit? And JJ got, like he said, he wanted to break his back. And that's when he spins out.
Clear shot on Romo. Yeah, I wonder about that left arm, though.
Yeah, Dan Fouts was wondering about JJ's left arm. Like, JJ been wearing that brace for 4 years at that point. It wasn't the brace. It wasn't his arm being weak. Damn it. Last one with JJ. This is a montage from Hard Knocks. I put this last in case it gets like a copyright strike and shuts down the stream. We'll all go down together like Thelma and Louise. Here we get to the point where JJ reached peak saturation, and the Barstool guys started having their way with that. Ryan Mallett, who, for those of you who don't know, passed away this last year. I still get angry and want to stick up for Ryan Mallett when, remember, they made it look like it was Ryan Mallett's fault that George Godsey sent in the wrong play in the preseason. Or they called like a QB sneak on, what did they call it? They called some bogus play on like 4th and 6. It was an awful play. And he comes to the sideline and O'Brien's like, yeah, you gotta let us know. You gotta really like it was some test or something that they did. Listen, I know about fake tests. I had a psychotic elderly. All right, so this is hard to see at first, but that's not. Who's 7? Was that Case?
This is live.
All right, so it's JJ's playing like left defensive tackle right here. And I think 88 might be supposed to kick him out here. God, I'm so bad with numbers. Fitzpatrick was there. That Hard Knocks was fun, man. Those are the glory years. Poor Blue. I know Blue got Blue got destroyed in that Hard Knocks by Cushing. The Cushing Hard Knocks montage is pretty badass. He has the one where he says he used to go to Starbucks and then he realized he wasn't a chick. Here's the one where he physically abuses Alfred Blue. There's like multiple moments of him just shoving offensive players for no reason whatsoever. And it was good stuff. One last one I want to hit. Nick Caserio, some of the questions that I didn't get to the other day. Let's get Nicky up here. So Nick Caserio was on our show on Payne and Pendergast in the morning on Monday. And I played back a few yesterday where I hadn't had a chance to listen to him yet. And here are the remainder. Some of the ones that are more like kind of wide-reaching free agency questions. But this one specifically, I think Sean asked him, can you bank on Dameon Pierce having a light go on? Kind of can he figure it out this next season?
I think the DP is a great player. He's helped us, win a number of football games. He's got good skill. I think, we've all been in the league and seen the league now. You need two good backs. So Damien's a good back. He has good skill. So once we get started here in the offseason program, we'll see what improvements a player can make. A lot of this is about individual ownership and the fact that, Damien was honest enough and accountable that he wants to improve and get better. It says a lot about who he is as a person. I think that's the type of mindset and the type of people that we want to continue to have in our building. So DP is going to help us win football games, and glad DP's here. He's got a great attitude. He's been in the building here, over the last few weeks. We have a number of players. Honestly, we have like 25, 30 players that are in the building working on their own volition, preparing for the start of the offseason program. So it's a credit to them. But I think DP's excited about the offseason, and everybody should be excited about the offseason just in terms of their individual improvement and just try to become a better football player, because that's what this is about.
Yeah, as far as Dameon Pierce goes, I think the one part about Dameon Pierce is that sometimes we get maybe too wrapped up in trying to figure out whether he's going to adapt to the outside zone running scheme and all of this. He's still a player who's on his rookie contract and has still extreme upside, I think, as a running back, whether it's in this scheme or elsewhere. I think one of the bigger things about him is that, for one, we've seen now what he can do as a returner, so that's exciting. But two, there's a place for the power running game and a lot of the things that Dameon Pierce excels at on this team. And one thing that the league's starting to realize is that, all right, all the outside zone running is very, very effective when you do it well, but defenses around the league are really adapting to it because there's so many teams that run a Kubiak-Shanahan offense now. Because of that, defenses are starting to get a little lighter in the seat and maybe not as good at anchoring down versus the run when you run power and duo and all this other stuff where you're just trying to mash people up the middle. And I think the Texans, they need to be able to have that club in their back. Now they can do it with Joe Mixon, but they also need to be able to do it with Dameon Pierce if Dameon Pierce is on the roster. The tricky thing is, man, like Damien's got to have some semblance of competence with the outside zone game, because if he's not, then teams are just going to load up on the plays that they know he can run, and they're not going to worry about the outside zone. So there's an in-between there somewhere. I'm more optimistic about Dameon Pierce right now than I had been, just because the financial side of it is still very advantageous to the Texans. And if it doesn't work out, I think he could be traded still. I don't know for what compensation, but if it doesn't work out through the first few weeks of the season, I still think there's a chance that they could trade him to a team that more fits what Damien's really good at somewhere during the line. But I think they give him a chance at least at the beginning of the year. Next, we asked Caserio, or at least Caserio brought up some things about the Texans that had left: Grenard, Singletary, Rankins, etc.
We're fortunate. We had a number of players that were here last year. I mean, you mentioned them. You throw JG in there as well. JG, Cash, Motor, Rank. I mean, great football players, great people. And, those are players that, we would have liked to have the opportunity to keep. We worked in a lot of those situations to try to keep them. In the end, it didn't work out. But certainly we're grateful for what they provided for our program. We have a great deal of respect for them. I mean, they worked hard. They were a big part of what we're doing. Their contributions were significant. So, I mean, honestly, you're happy happy for those players that they earned an opportunity, that they deserve what they received because of what they did on the field. So certainly wish those guys nothing but the best. You want them to go out there and be great football players and great people in the community, which I would say they will be. But that's just some of the give and take and some of the, let's say, roster movement that takes place on a year-to-year basis. So I'm sure we're going to have another group of players that will be here, and then eventually they'll probably not be here. But our job is kind of keep it moving and just try to identify the right folks. But I mean, those players in particular, I mean, nothing but respect and admiration, appreciation for what they did last year. They helped us, win a championship, and nobody can take that away from them.
Okay, so the players that he mentioned, it was Singletary, Rankins, and Grenard. I don't know if he mentioned anybody else. I think that, one of the things that those guys can do for the team still, and hopefully moving on for the rest of free agency and next year, was we saw that prove it contract work out. Devin Singletary got a better deal elsewhere than he'd had for 1 year with the Texans. Sheldon Rankins comes in, signs a 1 year deal here, gets a better deal after he plays for a year for the Texans. Jonathan Grenard has one good season for the Texans, really, like his first real complete season, and gets a very nice contract up in Minnesota. Now, he was drafted. He didn't come here as a 1 year free agent. But I do think that there's much more of an argument for guys that are out there in free agency right now to come here, sign a 1 year deal, expect that they're going to be an up and coming team, that they'll do some good things. And then maybe either with the Texans like Dalton Schultz, because there's another one, Dalton Schultz, 1 year prove it deal, got the nice deal here. That's big. Like you're not going to have the appeal of Belichick and Brady necessarily when guys would go there just to win a championship, but you do very much look like a viable place to come and either improve your reputation, stay healthy, whatever it might be. And I think that's going to be like that forever. I don't think I think Nick's very careful about who he falls in love with. Next question was about the Malik Collins trade. I just wanted to listen to this again, even though we've been over this ad nauseum. But as a quick recap, the Texans had a deal in place to trade Malik Collins for Eric Armstead. When the Texans realized they had a shot at Daniil Hunter, they had to bail on the Malik Collins trade. So I just asked Caserio, was that Malik Collins trade, did it go the way you wanted it to or expected it to? They ended up trading him for just a 7th round pick.
I think every situation is different. It's always a case-by-case situation. I'd say in the Malik situation, there actually had been different types of interest in the player at different points, going back to last year and then even during the course of the season. But, we felt that, keeping Malik on the team last year was the best thing for us, and he helped our football team and did a number of good things. So our job is to evaluate and assess and listen. That's part of my responsibility to the organization. That's my responsibility to the staff. And in the end, take the information and then ultimately, whatever decision you make, you're comfortable with whatever the result is, whether it's releasing a player, whether it's signing a player, whether it's trading a player. So I would say in Malik's situation, I'd say there's an opportunity for him to go to a great program or great organization with Kyle and John. And then we felt in the end that was probably the best thing for him and the best thing for us. So that's why we made the decision that we did with his situation.
Okay, so the way a lot of people have read this is that, look, Malik Collins wasn't the exact prototype type of defensive tackle that D'Amico probably wants. So they'd listened to potential trade offers before. Maybe it was in the works for some time. Here, when you actually get to the point where you were about to execute the trade, and it wasn't just Malik Collins for a draft pick or something. It was Malik Collins for a specific guy who plays the exact same position as you. I think that a combination of that, where you feel like, all right, well, the guy already knows that he was going to get traded. We might as well just pull the trigger on it. But also that the 49ers may have passed up other opportunities because they thought they had a deal in place for Eric Armstead. Maybe they had turned down a trade with somebody else, and all of a sudden they're out there in the lurch. So the Texans, and I know I've gotten pushback from some people that say, well, screw the 49ers. It's not the way you do business when you want to do business with somebody again. Like if it theoretically was that the Texans had to pull out of that trade and they left the 49ers kind of dangling, then I would feel compelled as a GM to say, all right, look, we'll do the trade, 7th round pick, whatever. People might differ on the ethics of that, but you gotta execute trades with all the teams in the league if you want to be competitive. So I'm okay with it. It was just curious, and it was kind of weird the way it all went down. But I'm good with it now. Next question was free agency and or he was talking about free agency and not getting fixated on one particular player in free agency. And I think, read between the lines, maybe if it's a Saquon Barkley or somebody like that.
Decision making is at a premium at that position. And CJ is very conscious of taking care of the football, understanding where to go with the ball, understanding maybe how to mitigate a play and not make it a bad play. But the most important job the quarterback has, among many things, is taking care of the football is number one. So if you take care of the football, then you at least give yourself an opportunity offensively to score points or do something. I mean, I know it's a simple way to look at it, but if you look at it through these terms as a quarterback, if you end every possession in a kick, so what does that mean? It's either going to be a field goal, a PAT, or a punt. Mm-hmm. That means you didn't give the ball to the other team. So I know it's kind of a simple way to look at it, but then when you look at kind of how CJ has played, how he played last year, he was able to take care of the football and make good decisions. I'd say for all of us, I mean, it's only going to get harder. So now we have a year under our program. There's 17 games or 18 or 19 games, however many we played, of CJ playing. So there's a lot of good coaches in this league. So we're going to have to figure out ways to continue to improve on our end and make adjustments where necessary. But, when a quarterback takes care of the ball that well, it just puts the offense in a better position, and you don't put the team in harm's way.
Yeah. So obviously that was just more him talking about CJ and his turnovers. That's one of the more unheralded yet super, super important things. People know these days that, when CJ was having a stretch of no interceptions and then had a weird CJ he's the chosen one. CJ threw his first interception, and the man who intercepted him was smote by God immediately. And I can't remember who the actual player was that God used as his instrument, but the dude fumbled the ball up immediately and gave it back to the Texans. Probably one of the more, that's one of the more underrated weird things that happened in the NFL this year. CJ Stroud breaking a record for no interceptions as a rookie and over a certain number of attempts, and then throwing your first interception and immediately getting it back on that same series, on that same play. I can't remember if they ended up scoring that drive or not, but that's he's chosen. What type of DT should the Texans look for in the draft? Excellent question. Now, look, the two guys that keep coming up are Fisk and T'Vondre Sweat. And they're two different types of dudes. Like, Fisk is very athletic. He's got short arms that make me nervous. I try not to be an armist about these things. Some guys, Tyler Lindenbaum has super short arms for the Ravens, and he's done well enough. That kid, that guard from Northwestern that the Titans signed, he's got tiny little alligator arms, but he does all right. So Fisk's short arms don't worry me as much, except that I've seen some like the more bigger and physical offensive lines give him a hard time. So, but there's a lot to like about him. T'Vondre Sweat, I like a lot, and I'm talking myself into him, even though he doesn't probably fit exactly what D'Amico wants to do, except right now they do have, they've got a boatload of these tweener types, these 3-4 defensive end types, like Danico Autry, and they just signed, what's his name? Anderson. That maybe there's a space for T'Vondre Sweat to come in and give you 20 to 30 snaps a game and just wreck shop in the middle. I would be so excited if they drafted T'Vondre Sweat. I would be so excited. The Texans dietitian would be excited too, because they'd have their hands full. T'Vondre, it's not an accident that he's 366. It's not like a glandular disorder or something. He's been lighter and now he's heavier. He can get lighter again. It's a matter of staying lighter. D'Amico practices outside all the time. That helps a lot. There's nothing worse than being that big and practicing outside. All right, I'm gonna get going because it's time. It's time to go. Thank you everybody for joining me. I'll try to chop this up and get some shorter episodes out there instead of these super long. There's just so much Texan stuff going on right now. I didn't expect there to be this much news. I was getting depressed for 2 weeks because I didn't really see a reason to live stream or anything. And now there's too much to talk about. I've barely indulged you guys in any Jersey talk at all. CJ first ever pass to himself and getting it back after his first ever interception. It was Nico. Oh, it was Nico. That's right. That stripped the ball. And Nico was the one we were talking about earlier. That he's, in some ways, I think he's almost, the way he talks about how it's the right thing to do to physically bludgeon people. it almost feels like he's one of these movie villains who thinks that he's ordained by God to do these awful things. And I think that was the hand of God taking the ball back for what was rightfully CJ's. I like this. We're about to get down mythological on these other teams in this league. Okay, one more question. Appreciate the stream. Thank you. Dietitian going to put extra cookies behind the other quarterback. All right, I'm going to get going. Thanks everybody, and tell a friend. Like and subscribe if you haven't. If you've come here a couple times and you've enjoyed yourself, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I don't even, if you unsubscribe, I'll never know about it. There's no fear of this. I'm not going to call you up and be like, "Hey, I thought we cared about each other." It's fine, man. It is what it is. I'm not psychotic anymore.